All right, back with another mock draft season, mock draft reaction here is what's going on. This is the mock draft I will be reacting to. This was actually it came out today that I'm recording this. So recording this, I'm going to upload it a little bit later. But the PFF Analytics 2023 NFL mock draft, and then tells us a little bit of spoilers that we'll then, know ahead of time. But okay, fine. So what is the PFF Analytics mock draft? Starting off with the two that everyone's going to start off with, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. Again, is it going to be in that order every time? It's going to be in that order most of the time. Probably going to be that order in the real draft. Totally makes sense. Number three, they have trades here. Did not realize trades were happening. Anthony Richardson, the Raiders trade up to pick number three to select him. I could see it. Why not? I defend this thing if they did it. I defend this move if the Raiders did it. I don't think it's going to happen, but I would not be against this whatsoever. Bet on upside, and you still have a great bridge quarterback. If Garoppolo is just a bridge, that's a great bridge quarterback. I don't think he's supposed to be a bridge. I think he's supposed to be a starter. But yeah, would be interesting. Colts then would go with Will Levis. So 4 quarterbacks go off the board, top 4. Probably what should happen, right? In most drafts, is the quarterback should be the one selected early on. I'm not as huge of a Will Levis fan as others are. Him being the 4th quarterback to me makes sense. I totally get it. Then the Seahawks would love this. Their pick of the litter, they go after Will Anderson, as the title suggests, which probably will be the pick if that does happen. And then the Lions getting Jalen Carter. That would be very fascinating if the Lions ended up with Jalen Carter, someone who can really, I think probably, for me, he's the best player in this draft if you take away positional value. And his positional value isn't bad necessarily, an interior defensive lineman. It's not quarterback important. So to me, he's the most valuable non-quarterback on the field. It's the off-the-field stuff. We know it. Number 7, though, the Cardinals, again, an interesting trade, I think. And this would be a really good move, I think. Trading back, I don't love Anderson or Carter enough to feel like I want to just sit at 3 and draft one of those 2 guys. Trading back to 7 and still getting a Christian Gonzalez type player, I'm cool with. That makes sense to me. I don't really hate this idea whatsoever. And again, love Jalen Carter, but just the off the field stuff would maybe make him not quite that clear number 1 non-quarterback prospect for me. And again, I don't know him. If I was in the NFL and an organization, I just want to meet him and see what he's like, and then make my decision. But given what I know now, I think this would be a great move for the Cardinals. Then we have the Falcons going after Tyree Wilson. You know me, not a Tyree Wilson fan. Get to some people like him. I didn't love his advanced analytics, and I think that those are concerning for that position. That's where I get a little concerned. Moving on to the Bears, Paris Johnson Jr. Feels like we're going to see a lot of tackles to the Bears at 9. I could see them going a defensive player if the opportunity presents itself, but okay, fair enough. The number 10, the Eagles also going offensive lineman. Well, this is interesting, though, because do they need a tackle is the question. And the answer is actually no, it's not a question. Malata and Johnson are their tackles. That's it. But Peter Skoronski, he'll play guard. That's just what he does. He plays guard. Sure. Fine. Makes sense. As they say here, perhaps he could play right guard, and then, eventually take over Lane Johnson's job at some point. Possible, but, I have no issue with drafting a guard in the top 10 if you feel like he's that guy. So I don't hate it necessarily. Next couple of picks, Jackson Smith and Jigba to the Titans. This happened in the last mock draft that I covered as well. I get it. I do get it. It makes sense. He's a very good wide receiver. Totally makes sense. The Texans getting Lucas Van Ness. Man, I would not love this pick. I don't think the Texans should be looking at like edge rush. They should just be looking at best player available. And I guess the idea is, hey, can we get someone in a position that I'm assuming they feel is a premium position in edge rusher? Can we get someone who could be a potential cornerstone of the franchise? I just don't know if Van Ness is that guy necessarily. I don't love his. I didn't love some of his production. That's just kind of how I viewed it. There are some good numbers, as they point out, but to me, it's a bit of a small sample size. And there's some not great numbers as well with Van Ness. Great talent. Could see it working out. Don't hate selecting him in the first round necessarily, but I just don't think I'd pick him this high. Number 13, the Jets, Broderick Jones. They're going to go offensive lineman. They're going to go tackle, help out Aaron Rodgers. That makes sense. The Patriots. I mean, this would be unfair if the Patriots ended up getting Devin Witherspoon at pick 14. I mean, talk about a dream scenario for them. I think he'll be gone before this point, but if he's not, yeah, Patriots definitely will swoop him up. 15, we have the Packers getting Nolan Smith. Again, would not hate this necessarily. Again, yeah, as I mentioned, they do have Rashawn Gary, who's a very good edge rusher. But listen, you're going to get snaps out of Nolan Smith. Get someone. The Packers do like to go after these athletes. We've seen it with the Quay Walker pick. That's kind of the one that jumps out of my mind of like going after a guy who maybe doesn't have the production but is a great athlete. Nolan Smith has some good numbers in his small sample size last season. There's hope for Nolan Smith. He is incredibly explosive. I like Nolan Smith. I do. I wouldn't hate this pick. And then the Commanders, I've talked about before. I think the Commanders should just make their list. These are our prospects. These are how much we like them, and just draft the best one that is still available at pick 16. If Joey Porter Jr. is your guy, totally get it. That makes sense to me. Number 17, Steelers will go Darnell Wright, who isn't my favorite tackle, but again, getting a tackle here, I do get the logic. And then 18, the Lions getting Deontay Banks, another corner, who again, the Lions at 6, they got Jalen Carter. So they felt great about Jalen Carter, who fell a little bit in the draft. They feel good about that, helping out the interior defensive line, now helping out the cornerback room. To me, this would be a great first round if the Lions can make it happen. The Buccaneers, Anton Harrison. I'm a little worried this is going to happen. I'm a Buccaneers fan who I don't love Harrison as a prospect. It's a bit concerning for me that I wouldn't love this selection. They need a tackle. They're a team that typically drafts for needs, so I could totally see it happening. But he just doesn't feel like a first rounder to me. But he feels like a first rounder to a lot of other people. So we'll see. Number 20, Zay Flowers, who, yeah, totally get it. Have him be your third option. He could be a great third option. I think he would fit that third receiver role incredibly well. Would be a big fan of this selection. Then the Chargers going after Myles Murphy. So listen, it's interesting to bring up that, one of Joey Bosa or Khalil Mack will likely be released in the next season due to their cap hits. So that's kind of the idea, is maybe not for the first year, but you'll still get some snaps year one. But then for the future, for the entirety of that rookie contract, it can work. Murphy's not my favorite prospect, but I do understand the logic behind getting him here at 21. Emmanuel Forbes to the Ravens. Yeah, I'd love this pick. I'm on board. I think Forbes should be a first rounder. I have him, I believe, as a top 15 prospect. I think he's getting massively swept on. So him going to the Ravens would be really a match made in heaven. Would totally be a fan. And then the Vikings getting Quentin Johnson, who, listen, they need an Adam Thielen replacement now. He would be a hell of an Adam Thielen replacement, in my opinion. Now, again, I get that Johnson's not everyone's cup of tea, but I really like him. I think he's really good and really underrated. He just finds ways to get open. He's my favorite receiver in this draft class. Would be totally a fan of them drafting him here. Moving on now, we have the Jaguars going after Brian Branch. Sure, again, a lot of players that can help out the Jaguars. I think Brian Branch could definitely be one of them. I think they could use someone who can play that role. So sure, makes sense to me. And then Brian Brisset here for the Giants at pick 25. Again, Giants, another one of those teams, should probably just make a board. Who are the best players available, and then just draft the best player available. I think that they have plenty of needs, so to me, that makes sense. Now, moving on to number 26, Kalijah Cansey, falls a bit in this draft, which is surprising to me. I really like Kalijah Cansey a lot as a player. I draft him a lot higher. I think if he got drafted by the Cowboys, they'd feel ecstatic here at 26. Jordan Addison to the Buffalo Bills. Really good fit. Would not hate this whatsoever. Be the third option behind Gabe Davis and behind Stephon Diggs. Of course, totally works. Definitely. I don't know if he's going to be a true number 2 guy, but I think day one can be a good number 3 option. And maybe, him and Gabe Davis could swap off being kind of the outside receiver at times. So that could be very interesting. 28, DeJuan Jones to the Bengals. Again, a lot of people, are expecting them to go offensive lineman here. He would not be a bad offensive lineman to take whatsoever. I like him as a player. Saints getting Mazi Smith. He feels like a Saint, doesn't he? That totally checks out. A good run stopping interior defensive lineman. Definitely get that one. The Eagles going a bit off the board here with Adetumua. Abba War did not say that right. I apologize. I apologize. That's not fair. You're about to get drafted in the first round. And I'm butchering your name. I don't know. Not someone I had as a first rounder. Not really someone I had on my radar as a first rounder, to be honest. But if they like him, hey, maybe I'll give him more of a deep dive and see if I'm wrong, and maybe he deserves more attention. I don't know. 31, we have another guy who I don't really have as a first rounder, but seems like people do. Felix Anunde Uzama is another interesting player. Chiefs could use an edge rusher. I get it. Maybe you go after that move. I can see the logic behind it. So yeah, that's the mock draft. Very fascinating mock draft. Some moves I definitely wouldn't necessarily agree with, but I'm intrigued by and I could see happening. So we'll see how many of those come true on draft night, or just how many of those predictions end up being correct about how confident they feel about certain players. So yeah, interesting stuff. But that's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.